Welcome to the MDM setup and configuration demo video. In this video, I will show how to install the MDM module, in this case the newer version 1.2, as well as how to transfer flavor files, how to set your setup so it can accommodate the MDM module, as well as the new items that are available in version 1.2. So let us begin by installing the new version. So as always, make sure you have administrative privileges to install it. By default, the installer will choose the database of the last version of SDS2 that has been installed on your system. If, however, you wish to install it on a different version, simply select the Browse button, browse to the version you wish to install it on, and select its parent folder. In this case, I do want to install it on 2017.04. So select the install and finish. It is as simple as that. However, there are new items I want to discuss, beginning with flavor files. So if you're familiar with when you create a new project in SDS2, there is a flavor file you can select. This is simply the custom properties of members, materials, etc. There are specific files that are required to run MDM. So what we'll do is we're going to cancel this, and I'm going to show you those items. So we have two flavor files that we can transfer. So it's simply a question of selecting them. I'll copy them. I'll go to my database. And within that database, you will find a flavors folder, and you simply paste them there. Now, there are two of them. It is up to the user to decide which one they want to use. So I will just place my window on the side just to show you quickly the difference between the two of them. So there is one called MDM and APRO. So MDM and APRO is the MDM module's custom properties, as well as the SDS2's approval custom properties. So I've created a quick project. I'll come back to that window in a moment. And I will show the properties for that member. As you can see, we have the general properties, the approval, fabricating, detailing. So it includes the approval custom properties, as well as the custom properties you need to get the MDM module to run. Within the other property, it is basically the minimum custom properties required to get the MDM2 to run. So if I would select MDM2, we're going to get that little window again. I'll come back to it later. And as you can see, the general properties is empty. However, under the model check custom properties, everything required to run the MDM module is available. So it is the bare minimum. As far as when you start a new project and which one you wish to use, that is entirely up to you. I will come back to adjusting your current project's property file to accommodate MDM a little later. So now I'm going to return to my setup demo project, close a couple of windows, and we're going to begin by showing you the icons, how to place the icons within your toolbar. So the first time that you open up SDS2, after the installing of the MDM module, you will receive this little window. Enter your username. So in the case here, I'm going to enter my name. Every user who would log on to SDS2 at this point would have this same window. So they would enter their username. This is so that we can keep track of who does what. So as of right now, this station is linked to my username. So we'll open the model. I'll just select an ISO view. Within the options in the pull down, I'm going to go into toolbar configuration. Just move my floating toolbar, and within the command group, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see the management tools. So it's just a question of clicking and dragging the ones you wish to your menu and dropping them. And then lastly, the update system. So now we just save it either as a default or perhaps give it initials for, in this case I know it's for the MDM, or my initials, as you normally would do. So at this point, if I was to run the update system tool, I will get the directory set up. However, if I cancel this and I select the management tool setup option, I will mention a few items within this window. Reset sub-window positions. This is if you're using multiple monitors and there's windows all over the place, you can have as the modules reset them to your primary monitor. However, what I want to speak about is the directory setup. For MDM2 to run, it must have paths set to check certain items. In this case, where is the PDF directory going to be? Where are the user logs? Where are the piece marking master setups? So we have to set this at the beginning after installing. So there's a few of them. We can just simply use the job directory. So in this case, a PDF check, I want to use wherever the current project is located. Same thing with the user log and the job management directory. My job, SDS2 job repository. So in this case, we have three options. So I'm going to select the default one where the SDS2 projects are. However, within your system, if you have repositories being used, say for different fabricators or engineering firms, you can browse to those locations as well. However, if it is the same, if you use all your projects are in the same location, it is just a question of copying and pasting the first one. The last one is for the piece marking master setup. Now in this case, we're going to use the browse button. You do not have to do it this way, but within the default database, I'm going to create a new folder. Now you can put this folder elsewhere on your system, that is fine. I'm just going to create a folder called piece marking. And I'm using uppercase for a reason. Just simply put, if I was to look at the database of SDS2, you'll notice anything that is installed from design data is in lowercase. This way, my piece marking stands out and I know it's something I've added. And then of course, this does not have to be placed here. It can be placed somewhere else. That is fine. Also, within the users, so perhaps at the beginning, I'm going to set up every user on my system. I can do that at this point. So if I was to select, say, Phil, and save it. So now I can also remove different users. And of course, this is covered a little more in depth in the training video. So I'm just going to close this. Now I'm going to run that update system again. I'm going to select the member, and I'm going to receive an error. Now there's several reasons for this. It is looking for certain items, number one, in my setup. So within my setup, if I open my little PDF document, there are some requirements that need to be done to my setup, starting with the category definitions. So I need these category definitions added into my fabricator setup, as well as these routings in routing number 2 and routing number 3. Now I will just mention you can, if you want, I should have some documents listing the items that are required. However, in a newer version, we've created a parametric that will add them for you. Now you can simply run a parametric. So in this case, they're on my desktop under the quick plugin. Now this is also a plugin, so you can add it to your plugin directory if required. So I'm just going to run it as a simple parametric. And I get this warning. Now it's very important to heed this warning, because what this parametric is actually going to do is rewrite the file you found in Windows. So number 1, of course, it's indicating I'm about to modify the job setup. Everybody in SDS2 in this session must exit. Anybody who's in this project must get out, or database corruption will ensue. So the next 3 items, category definitions, user routings 2 and 3, will be overwritten. Once I press that process button and it's done, I must close SDS2 completely on my station and then reopen it. Not just the model, but the main menu as well. Any windows that are open. So I'm going to hit that process. So it's done. Do not forget to close the main menu and the model prior to continuing. So I'm going to close it completely. And I'm going to reopen it. I'm going to go into my model. Now I've also written a little macro that I'll make available. It will check to make sure that those items have been written correctly. So as you can see, routing 3, number 2 in the category, yes, they are written correctly. If there was a mistake, as it is right now, I wrote this parametric just a few days ago, it would just say no, something is wrong with it. It wouldn't say exactly what. So if I wish to, I can always check my category. Fabricator, just to verify. As you can see, those items are there. Also, in version 1.2, there are 2 new category additions. So if you're using an older version of the MDM module, affected and pending should be added manually. Or simply run this macro I showed a moment ago. Okay, so that's 3 items that I've repaired or adjusted within my setup. There are a couple more that need to be done. So I'm just going to reopen that MDM. So as I mentioned, the routing, the category. Next is status control. Status control, so the model complete used. Under job setup, status control must be set to legacy. There are certain internal restrictions when running parametrics, or at least the module, when it's set to restrictive. So again, to get MDM2 to run properly, it must be set to legacy for the model complete type. In regards to the balance of the items, that is up to the user. Next is drawing pen setup number 7. Now, as you can see, I must change the color. This is when you're basically, when the user adds dimensions or text manually. If you remember from the other demos, it comes in, they should change it to purple. So that way, when the detail is printed in PDF format, for checking on the computer, you can see, in this case, what the user has added, which of course, in this case, is those dimensions and that text. So we're going to first fix the pen setup. So within my project, under the fabricator, drawing pen setup, change the red and the green, I believe was 60 and 35? 60 and 35. So I'll readjust that. 60 and 35. Okay. However, next, you'll notice I have another fabricator. The reason for this is the pen, when I'm checking internally on my details, so my checker needs to check those PDFs, we want to know what the user has changed. However, when we send it out for approval to the shop for fabrication, those same dimensions or text, we do not want them to appear in a different color. Perhaps the printer will print them in a lighter color and it will confuse the person we're sending it to. So we need to create another fabricator so that all the text comes out the same color. So there will be a secondary fabricator. Now, creating another fabricator is simply open your job and fabricator setup, select the change fabricator option, new. Do not enter anything into the new fabricator. You will be prompted in a minute for a name. So select the copy from, job, select the browse, select the exact same project you're using. If you remember, all our categories are set, our routings. Which one do I want to copy from? This one. It's the only fabricator set up currently in my project. Select the OK, and you will be prompted for a name. Now this one is important. Underscore GER underscore must be at the beginning of the secondary or tertiary fabricators if you are using multiples. Other than the master fabricator, it must be set as underscore GER underscore. The reason for this is at a certain point when I'm doing my transmittals, the module will verify I'm using the correct fabricator. So the colors come out correctly, and this is how it does it with the name. So with the rest, I can give it the same name if required or needed, or perhaps another name. So I'll select OK. Now, as you can see, my current fabricator is that underscore GER. When I created a new one, that's what it is. Something to keep in mind with SDS2 and multiple fabricators. If I was to change my project to another project, and I was to return to that that setup demo, you'll notice the fabricator returned to what is known as the master fabricator. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you're changing your fabricator, then you change to another project and return, that secondary or tertiary fabricator will be returned back to the master one. So the listing here, it's important. However, if I close it and reopen it, is the same effect. So keep that in mind. Now, next, I'm going to return to the model. And, well, I didn't open I forgot to mention, if you're going to change the name of your toolbar, make sure in your configuration files that you tell the system to use that one. Okay, so I'm going to go into an ISO view, and I'm going to run that update on a member, and I'm still going to get an error. Now in this case, the error is looking for certain properties that are not currently in my project. So if I was to edit that member, go into properties, as you can see, it looks nothing like the previous two that I showed you a few moments ago. So I must adjust this current property for this current project so that it can be used with the MDM module. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close SDS2. I'm going to open up two windows of Windows Explorer. Now on one of them, I'm going to open my database, go to that current project's job folder, setup demo, and on the other one, again, I'm going to go to my database, to the flavor folder that I copied the flavors before into. At this point, I'm going to have to decide which one I want to use. Again, the minimum one or the one with the approval properties as well. So in this case, we're going to imagine I'm going to use the approval properties. So if I open that one up, I'm going to see two folders, a custom and a meta. And as you can see within my jobs folder for my project, there is a custom and a meta folder. So it's simply a question of opening the custom. In my project, I'm going to get rid of those PYC. They're just compile files. Don't worry, when I edit a member later on, it will recreate those PYC files for my new properties. So I'm just going to select the custom from my flavor file, copy them into my project. So this is a complete replacement of the properties. Again, I return to the meta folders on each item, so within the flavors and within my project. Again, schemas. I will open the schemas on my project, and I will copy them into my project. Now it is important that you do not touch the schema, control, or list files. Now within SDS2, if I was to open it up, return to my model, just to edit that same member. And if I open my properties, as you can see, I have my approval properties as well as my MDM model check properties. If you have already entered custom properties yourself into your master template project and you want to meld them with the MDM properties, that is a little trickier. Now, what I always recommend, if that is the case, please send me your files, or at least a project with your flavor file, and I will do them. The reason I mention this is because, number one, a PYC, or rather the Python file, is quite extensive. Just to show you some of the coding. And it's not something I can really show in a video, as everybody's custom properties are slightly different. And in this case, as it is, it's 3,500 lines of code. That is just the default MDM with the approval. So it is a little easier if you can contact me, and of course you can contact me at the following email. If I could open the email address. If not, I will find it here in a moment. Here, let me go into my F drive. Here it is. So at this email address, you can contact me, or at 1-866-435-6366. And you can send me your properties and I'll mold them together with one of the two that we have here, the minimum or the approval and the MDM. And I'll send it back to you, and all you would do is simply place it into your flavors folder. So you would have another one, your company name, flavor. So that concludes the major portion of the video. However, there are a couple of items I want to show, a couple of new items in this version 1.2. So a couple of things that you must do. So once you install 1.2, there is an item under, I'll make it available, a statusing that I want you to actually add yourself. So you would just select the file, just copy it into your member or your project's database under the CONF status. Once you run the update status for the first time, it will create a management module folder in your CONF status. Just paste this status within the management module just to right next to the management module default. The reason for this, you have to do it manually, is one of the programmers forgot to include it, so we have to do it manually for now until 1.21 comes out. So once that's done, I'm going to show you a couple of items that have been adjusted or added to version 1.2. So if I was to open a modeling window, actually before I do that, I'm going to set up my default statuses. So I'm sure everybody knows under user options. Now I mentioned that I'm using 2017, but this is available in 2016 and 15. Is you can define the statuses that are to be used. So I'm going to add a couple. I'm going to go into my management module. So I've added them both, and I'm going to use the default one as my active one. That simply means anytime I check that little option for status display, it will be the default that is used. So a couple of items, just going to get rid of that terrain at the bottom. And maybe the piece marks, this is just a little annoying. So members, where are they? Piece marks, everything is new. Members, no? Oh, there it is. Member piece marks, and so that is the default. Now, let's imagine, for whatever reason, as I'm checking, I'm going to put a member on hold. This is one of the new items that's added. So let's say this little 12 by 22 here. I'm going to place a hold on it. So I've selected the members. I'm going to select the update system. Under the under the general update, I'm going to hold it for, let's say, the section size. And I'm going to close it. So as you can see, the color red indicates that the member is on hold. Well, what about the members it frames to, or members that frame to it? There is another, as I mentioned, hold pending and affected. So if I select that, you'll notice that the members it's framing into are affected by the hold on this W12 by 22. So it is just a quick visual note or a status display that will indicate, of course, the member that is on hold and any affected member of that hold. So that is the new status display. Another new item in version 1.2. Again, I'm just going to run the update status, is the finishing. It is different now. As you can see, we have masking and unknown. So if I go into the setup options, I'm going to open the finish setup. So in this case, I can add my finishes as required. So I'm going to select a new finish or add one. There, no paint. I can set the category. Category right now is not used, and it will be used later on in a newer version for piece marking options. However, I can add in notations here, such as clean, no paint. So if I select OK and I return to the general update, you can see my NP1, and if I was to put my cursor at the question mark, it'll just indicate what it is. You can also do a whole bunch of setups and export them, and you can import them. So if you have setups already done, perhaps by engineer, by fabricator, you can select them, bring them in. Now when I go to my general update, I have different, in this case, systems. So no painted, remove scale, etc. So I can select the system painting. And of course, under the setup, I can change my project's default as we did in version 1.2. 1.1 and below. So we can do that. That is one of the major changes, or two of the major changes. Other changes include bug fixes. I am not quite sure, but I believe, no, the status transfer was there before. That would conclude the video. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And have a pleasant day. Thank you. Bye.